Yeah.
Kansas State greatly exceeded expectations in year one under Chris Klieman. Can they now carry that momentum into 2020? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 Kansas State Wildcats college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our new website, thegridironexpert.com, and also check out all of our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So last year, going into 2019, I was really intrigued and interested in this Kansas State team. Chris Klieman, who had done so well at North Dakota State in the FCS, was now making the transition to the FBS. And it wasn't some small transition from an FCS school to a group of five. It was a big jump, all the way to a Power 5 program and a conference dominated by offenses. And Kansas State surprised everybody. The Wildcats went 8-5 last year. That included an 8-4 regular season, with wins against Oklahoma, Iowa State, and Mississippi State out of the SEC. Kansas State saw themselves rise as high as number 16 in the country. And now going into 2020, they certainly have the talent to replicate some of that success, but you can't help but wonder, will the Wildcats take a step back? We look at their offense here. They only returned 2 starters from their offense, an offense that was 103rd in the country last year. So even with a lot more experience last year, this Kansas State offense wasn't all that flashy. They weren't all that dominant. They don't really fit the mold of being that electric Big 12 offense that we see out of teams like Oklahoma, maybe Texas, and even Oklahoma State. They lose all 5 of their offensive linemen. They lose their running back in James Gilbert, and now their quarterback, Skylar Thompson, basically has to build chemistry with a brand new slate of wide receivers. But that's the key name, guys, is Skylar Thompson. Kansas State does not have to deal with a brand new quarterback. They've got a veteran quarterback under center and a dual threat one. Thompson threw for over 2,300 yards and 12 touchdowns last year, but added 400 plus rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. 23 total touchdowns on the year, nearly half of those coming on the ground for Thompson. His health and his ability to build chemistry with his running backs and receivers is going to be key, and seeing if Kansas State's offense can kind of get out of the cellar of the country. When you look at their defense, that's the strength for Kansas State, and that's going to determine whether or not they can maybe go out and win 8 or 9 games in 2020, or maybe if they just hover around the bowl eligibility mark. They returned 7 starters. They were 44th in the country last year. That is not bad at all, especially for the first-year head coach. Elijah Sullivan is back at linebacker. He was the leading tackler from last year. Wyatt Hubert is back up front at defensive end. He was the sack leader last year with 7 sacks in 2019. And then you've got A.J. Parker leading the secondary. He led the team with 3 interceptions in 2019. So there is tons of talent and experience on the defensive side of the ball for Kansas State. It's just, can they bail out the offense in some of these games? We take a look at their schedule here, guys. And again, at the filming of this video, the only conferences that have canceled non-conference games and have really made a decision for this upcoming season are the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Those are the only conferences that have given us word on their kind of decisions for this upcoming season. Kansas State, as you can see, does not face a Big Ten or a Pac-12 opponent. So we are going to predict all 12 games for the Wildcats, just like we have done for every other Big 12 team and every other Power 5 team so far this prediction season. They kick off the year against Buffalo, and we did not mark this down as an automatic win, but we are going to give them a win. This is a Buffalo team, though, guys, that offensively is very, very dangerous. They've got one of the better running backs in the country that you haven't heard of in Jarrett Patterson. So if Kansas State's defense isn't up to par, or if Kansas State's offense struggles and the defense gets worn down, Buffalo could put up some points here. But I think Chris Klieman and his squad get a season-opening victory. They're 1-0, and we're going to make them 2-0 with a win over North Dakota. But, man, I sure do wish, I know DM, I know you wish this too, that this was a game against North Dakota State and not just plain old North Dakota. But regardless, Kansas State gets a win here, and they certainly get a win over Vanderbilt. And many will say, well, why are you dismissing an SEC team so quickly? Because Vanderbilt's the worst SEC team out there, guys. They are the worst SEC team in that conference. While Kansas State did lose to Vanderbilt 14-7 back in 2017, 2017 feels like a long, long time ago. Vanderbilt's dealing with a brand new quarterback. They're dealing with an offense that's practically non-existent this year. They lost all their biggest playmakers from 2019. And their defense, while it returns everybody, really has never benefited Vanderbilt. They've returned plenty of experience before, and their defense is always towards the bottom of the conference and in the country. So I think at home, even though Kansas State's offense may struggle this year, I think they light up this Vanderbilt team, and they are 3-0. They then jump right into Big 12 conference play. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is where it's going to matter the most for Chris Klieman and his squad. They're halfway to bowl eligibility, and I think if you get there this year, that is a major success. They start off against West Virginia on the road. Now, this is a game that Kansas State cannot afford to overlook, especially since they lost to the Mountaineers 24-20 last year. 24-20 in Manhattan, Kansas State lost to West Virginia. And I think that really surprised a lot of people. I expected a lot more from Kansas State in that game. But what West Virginia did for the final 3 games was they made a quarterback change. And Jarrett Doege took over for Austin Kendall, and they won 2 of their final 3 games on the road against Kansas State and TCU. So if Jarrett Doege plays the way he did over the final little quarter of the season, and the defense takes a step forward, Neil Brown could have his squad in contention for a bowl game. And I do think that he can do just that. And I do think that West Virginia takes down Kansas State here. I think the defense improves. Last year it was a low-scoring game. They held Kansas State with a better offense last year than they're going to have this year to just 20 points at their home field. I don't think Kansas State can go on the road and take on an improving Mountaineer squad this year. They're 3-1. They bounce back with a game against Texas at home. And guys, the series between Texas and Kansas State in recent years has been phenomenal. Kansas State lost 27-24 last year to the Longhorns, but the last 4 games between Kansas State and Texas have been decided by 6 points or less. Say that again. The past 4 games between Texas and Kansas State have been decided by 6 points or less. That includes a 19-14 Texas victory last time here in Manhattan. And unfortunately, yes, Texas has won 3 straight against the Wildcats. This is a Texas team. They're in for a big year under Tom Herman. At least that's what they need. Sam Ehlinger is back at quarterback. Keontae Ingram is back at running back. And their defense, which was very bad against the pass, does return 9 starters and has a brand new defensive coordinator in Chris Ash. All that being said, you can expect a very close game yet again between Texas and the Wildcats. And this year, the 3-game winning streak for the Longhorns will end. Kansas State takes down Texas in Manhattan. I think it's time. They've come so close. They should have won it last year. Dicker, the kicker, bailed Texas out yet again. And I think Skylar Thompson comes in here and lights up this Texas defense. They're still going to go through some growing pains here. And if I'm not mistaken, Texas does face Oklahoma the week after that. So maybe the Longhorns are looking ahead to that big-time rivalry game. Kansas State stays at home, takes care of Kansas, guys, a team that I'm not high on. I know a lot of people like Kansas this year. They think they might be able to break through to a bowl game in year 2 under Les Miles. After researching them and studying them, I just don't think that's going to be the case. They beat the Jayhawks 38-10 last year. That was coming off that upset victory over Oklahoma that Kansas State was able to put up. So I don't think at home this year against a Kansas team that's still going to struggle that the Wildcats will fall. So they win that game, guys. And look, they're 5-1. So they're certainly top 25, probably top 15, I would think, at this point, just like they were last year, as high as number 16 in the country in 2019. But then the schedule starts to get difficult, especially this back half here, guys. These final 5 games, Kansas State has to play 4 of the top 5 teams in the Big 12 in 5 consecutive weeks, or within a 5-week span. You got Iowa State and 3 straight games against Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. We got to touch on this TCU game first. A road game against the Horned Frogs, a TCU team that went just 5-7 in 2019. But they should drastically improve in 2020. And when we say drastically, we don't mean jumping from 5 wins to 10 wins. We just mean statistically and experience-wise, this is going to be a much better TCU team considering they went 5-7 but had 6 losses by 1 possession. If I look at this TCU team, Max Duggan, a dangerous dual-threat quarterback here, back for the Horned Frogs. He's got to build chemistry with his wide receivers early, just like Skylar Thompson does. But the one thing that TCU benefits from is a 5-star running back in Zach Evans, who should get plenty of playing time in 2020. The game is in Fort Worth. Kansas State did win this game last year against the Horned Frogs, and I think TCU gets revenge. The Wildcats fall to the Horned Frogs here. They're now 5-2. They get their bye week on October 24th, and then don't get a whole extra week after that. They're going to be playing Iowa State on a Thursday night. This is an Iowa State team, guys, that, yes, Kansas State did defeat last year. They beat them. Beat them 27-17 in the season finale. And that was a good Iowa State team, guys, even though they did disappoint a little bit, going just 7-5. But let me tell you one thing. This Iowa State team is way better than they were last year. This Iowa State team is not going to disappoint like they did last year. A very, very strong and underrated defense and one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, maybe up there as one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Brock Purdy. And again, whether fans are there or not, it doesn't matter. Ames is a very difficult place to play. So despite coming off of a week of rest, I think Kansas State drops this game to the Cyclones, who are absolutely Big 12 title contenders in 2020. They come home, though. They've got 2 home games left and 2 road games left. They just need to win 1, guys. Remember, we said with as difficult as the schedule is and as much as Kansas State loses offensively, getting to a bowl game would be a fantastic season under Chris Klieman. They just need 1 more win to get there, and it's going to come at home against Texas Tech. This is a game that, if Texas Tech is fully healthy, will really, really challenge this Kansas State defense, guys, because we know that with Alan Bowman, Texas Tech will have one of the best passing attacks in the nation. They did last year without Bowman, finishing 7th in the country in passing yards per game and 11th in the country in total offense. So this is going to test Kansas State. And if it becomes a shootout, it actually might favor Texas Tech because maybe Kansas State's offense can't keep up. Maybe they can't score at will like maybe Texas Tech can. But I'm not banking on the Red Raiders doing that. At home, following a loss, 2 straight losses at that, Chris Klieman is going to whip his team into shape. They had 2-game losing streaks last year, keep in mind, 8-5. They had 2 stretches where they lost back-to-back games, and then they bounced back with some wins. That's exactly what happens here. They're going to take down Matt Wells and the Red Raiders, a very dangerous offensive team, but one that Kansas State's defense rises to the occasion for. They then go back on the road to take on Oklahoma, a team they upset 48-41 last year, one of the biggest upsets of the 2019 season, and the Sooners still won the Big 12 and made the college football playoff. If Kansas State were to go on the road and pull this one off, the Sooners might not get to the college football playoff this year because they might lose before then. But you look at this Oklahoma team, guys, yes, they absolutely want revenge. They certainly want revenge after that loss to Kansas State in Manhattan. And while they don't have a veteran quarterback under center like they've had in recent years, they've got a great one in Spencer Rattler as long as he pans out and is able to get his wide receivers on the same page. Oklahoma is a team that's kind of been rattled by some injuries and inexperience on the wide receiver position, but certainly something that I think Lincoln Riley will correct and have worked out by November 14th. November is the most important month in college football, guys, especially for those elite contenders. Oklahoma has no room for error. And I don't think they slip up here at home to the Wildcats. So Chris Klieman's squad drops this. And I think they drop a home game to Oklahoma State too, guys. They're maybe a little hungover after Oklahoma, a game where I don't think they get annihilated, but I think it's a game that the Sooners do win by at least 10 points. And then you look at this Oklahoma State team. They lost to the Cowboys 26-13 last year in Stillwater. They lost on the road. And they allowed almost 300 rushing yards to Chuba Hubbard. So even if Kansas State comes in here and shuts down Chuba Hubbard, they've still got a dangerous dual-threat quarterback themselves, Oklahoma State does, in Spencer Sanders, and a great wide receiver duo in Dylan Stoner and Tylan Wallace. Oklahoma State, I should mention, also returns all 11 starters defensively. So this is a Cowboys team that certainly will be contending for a Big 12 title berth, could maybe be that college football playoff dark horse as long as they stay healthy, because Wallace and Sanders both went down with an injury last year. As long as they stay healthy, Oklahoma State's going to be a tough out for any team, and I don't really care how good your defense is. So kind of like Oklahoma, kind of like Texas Tech, a lot of points could be scored in this one, but the Kansas State offense won't be able to continue to score at will like they need to. They fall to the Cowboys, and I believe they fall in the season finale to the Bears. I know it's a 3-game losing streak. I know maybe that's not characteristic of a Chris Klieman-led team, but they lost to this Baylor team 31-12 last year at home. They lost by 19 points to Baylor last year. And I know many will be quick to say, well, Matt Rule is gone now. A lot of those defensive starters are gone now. And you are right. But the offense is still intact, led by one of the best QBs in the Big 12 in Charlie Brewer, a very, very talented and experienced quarterback in Charlie Brewer. And while the defense only does return 2 starters, and while I do think they struggle early, they made the hire in Dave Aranda, who is a fantastic defensive mind and is not going to let his defense be one of the worst in the country, especially by season's end. As we all know, Waco is a difficult place to play, so I do think that the Wildcats slip up in a much closer game. Once again, probably by 10 or less in this one. 10 or more for the Oklahoma game, 10 or less for the Baylor game, but it does go in favor of Dave Aranda and his Bears, which means that Chris Klieman and Kansas State will finish the season at 6-6 and a chance at a 7-win season. Last year they went 8-4 in the regular season. This year we have them going 6-6, and I know that is a bit of a step back, and I know that might be seen as a disappointment for some, but to me it is not. To me, I think that's a fantastic coaching job yet again by Chris Klieman. I know many will say, well, they started 5-1, and then they're only going to win one game the rest of the season. The first half of the schedule, the way it works out, is just way more favorable than the back half of the schedule. At TCU, at Iowa State, at Oklahoma, at Baylor. Those are all very, very difficult games. And once again, like we mentioned, in that 5-week stretch, they play 4 of the top 5 teams in the Big 12. The schedule doesn't do Kansas State any favors, but Chris Klieman will find a way to get the Wildcats back to the postseason. And again, that is an insanely successful season in Manhattan, and Chris Klieman continuing to show that he can win at just about anywhere. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our new website, thegridironexpert.com, and also follow us on our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.